First contact gone wrong. The crystalline spires of the Zarkak's command vessel Eternal Dominance sparkled against the backdrop of distant stars. Admiral Vertax stood at his command post, his segmented exoskeleton gleaming under the soft blue lighting of the bridge. His compound eyes focused on the peculiar sight before him, a solitary human vessel that had wandered into Zarkak space. Magnify the image, Vertax commanded, mandibles clicking with barely contained amusement. The holographic display expanded, revealing a ship that seemed almost primitive by Zarkak standards. Its hull bore the markings of the United Earth Exploratory Force, though the Admiral noted with disdain that the vessel's design appeared more suited to a cargo hauler than a military craft. "Scans complete, Admiral," announced his second-in-command, Korix. "The vessel identifies itself as the UEES Horizon. No significant weapons signatures detected. Their shield technology appears rudimentary at best." Vertax's antenna twitched in satisfaction. The Zarkak's empire had conquered 12 star systems in the past solar cycle alone, their superior technology and tactical prowess unmatched in this sector of space. This human vessel would serve as an excellent example to any other species that might consider encroaching on their territory. "Open communications," Vertax ordered. "Let's see what excuse these primitives offer for their trespass." The main viewport shimmed and revealed the bridge of the human vessel. Vertax was struck by how sparse and utilitarian it appeared. No ceremonial markings, no display of military might. At its center stood a human female, her dark skin contrasting with the white of her uniform. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual, which only served to irritate the Admiral further. "This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the UEES Horizon," she announced, her voice carrying a note of warmth that seemed inappropriate for the situation. "We apologize for any concern our presence may have caused. We're a peaceful exploration vessel conducting deep space surveys." Vertax's mandibles clattered in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Captain Rodriguez, you have entered sovereign Zarkak space. Your peaceful intentions are irrelevant. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded, or we will demonstrate why the Zarkak's empire is feared across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy." The human captain's expression remained unchanged, save for a slight lift of the corner of her mouth. "Admiral, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. According to the Galactic Concordat of 2187, this sector is designated as neutral space. We're well within our rights to conduct our survey here." Vertax's irritation grew. How dare this primitive creature quote treaties to him? He gestured to his tactical officer, and within moments, a dozen Zarkak's warships decloaked around the human vessel, their weapon ports glowing with charged plasma. "Perhaps I wasn't clear, Captain. The Zarkak's empire doesn't recognize your human interpretations of space law. You have 2 options. Surrender or be destroyed. Choose quickly." Captain Rodriguez sighed, and for the first time, her casual demeanor slipped. "Admiral, I strongly advise against hostile action. The consequences would be unfortunate." The bridge of the Eternal Dominance erupted in chittering laughter. The human vessel was barely a quarter the size of even their smallest destroyer. Its outdated design and apparent lack of weapons made it little more than target practice. "Tactical, target their propulsion systems," Vertax commanded. "Let's demonstrate what happens to those who defy the Empire." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from their vessel. They don't match any known configurations in our database." Vertax dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper appendage. "Probably some primitive attempt at shield modulation. Proceed with the attack." Captain Rodriguez shook her head. "Final warning, Admiral. What you see isn't what you get." The Zarkak's Admiral gave the fire order, and brilliant streams of plasma lanced out from his ships toward the horizon. What happened next would be recorded in Imperial archives as the beginning of the end of Zarkak's superiority. Just before the plasma bolts struck, the horizon's seemingly primitive hull began to change. Plates shifted and transformed, revealing layers of technology that had been completely hidden from sensors. The plasma fire passed harmlessly through the ship as if it were a hologram. "Fascinating," Rodriguez commented, now standing with her arms clasped behind her back. "You actually thought we'd send an unprotected vessel into unexplored space. Humanity learned long ago that looking harmless is sometimes the best defense. Allow me to show you why." The Horizon's transformation continued, its hull now rippling with patterns of energy that made Vertax's compound eyes ache to look at. What had appeared to be a simple exploration vessel was revealing itself to be something else entirely. Something that made every combat instinct in the Admiral's body scream danger. For the first time in his long military career, Vertax felt a sensation he had never expected to experience when confronting a supposedly inferior species. Fear, the art of deception. Impossible. Vertax sputtered, his compound eyes fixed on the transforming human vessel. The Horizon's hull had become a shifting maze of geometric patterns, each section revealing new layers of technology that defied Zarkak's understanding. "Sir, energy readings are off the scale," Korix reported, his claws dancing across the control interface. "Their power signature, it's like nothing in our database. The ship appears to be generating some kind of quantum field." Captain Rodriguez's image remained steady on the view screen, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You know, Admiral, humanity has always had a fascinating relationship with deception, not just as a military tactic, but as an art form. Magic shows, poker faces, camouflage. We've turned hiding things in plain sight into a science." The Horizon's transformation continued. What had appeared to be standard hull plating peeled away like petals of a blooming flower, revealing weapon systems that made the Zarkak's plasma cannons look like children's toys. Ports opened along its length, but instead of conventional weapons, they emitted fields of strange energy that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. "Our ancestors," Rodriguez continued, her voice taking on an almost educational tone, "learned long ago that the best way to survive wasn't always to be the biggest or strongest. Sometimes it was better to be underestimated, to look weak when you were strong, to seem primitive when you were advanced." Vertax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "Open fire. All ships, concentrate your attacks on their weapon systems." A barrage of plasma bolts and quantum torpedoes streaked toward the Horizon. But instead of impacting or being deflected, the weapons simply vanished. The space around the human ship rippled like heat waves over desert sand, and every single attack disappeared as if it had never existed. "Interesting approach," Rodriguez commented. "But perhaps I should explain what you're actually shooting at. You see, what you're witnessing isn't just a ship. It's humanity's answer to a question your species never thought to ask. Why fight against quantum uncertainty when you can embrace it?" The tactical officer's voice rose in panic. "Admiral, the human vessel. It's simultaneously registering in multiple locations. Our targeting systems can't lock onto its true position." Indeed, the Horizon now seemed to exist in several places at once, each version equally real and unreal, shifting and changing like a mirage. The Zarkak's fleet's sophisticated targeting computers, designed to track and engage hundreds of targets simultaneously, were being driven into confusion by a single ship that refused to exist in just one place. "You rely on technology that forces quantum mechanics to behave according to classical physics," Rodriguez explained. "We took a different approach. The Horizon doesn't fight quantum uncertainty. It surfs it. Every weapon you fire at us simply adds energy to our quantum field, making us even harder to pin down." Vertax watched in horror as his fleet's formation began to break down. Ships trying to target the Horizon found their own weapons passing through empty space, or worse, curving back toward their sources as space itself seemed to fold and twist around the human vessel. "Activate the quantum fold drives," Vertax commanded. "We'll tear apart their field with a coordinated space-time rupture." Rodriguez actually chuckled. "You still don't understand, do you? Your quantum fold drives operate on principles we mastered decades ago. The technology you're seeing isn't our ultimate weapon, it's our training wheels. As if to demonstrate her point, the horizon suddenly pulsed with brilliant energy. The quantum field surrounding it expanded exponentially, enveloping several Zarkak ships. Within the field, the mighty warships found themselves unable to maintain their position in normal spacetime, their own quantum fold drives rendered useless by the human ship's superior control over quantum mechanics. Think of it this way, Admiral, Rodriguez said, her tone almost sympathetic. You built mighty ships to conquer space. We built ships that convince space to cooperate with us. Your technology forces the quantum realm to obey your rules. Ours, we let quantum mechanics write its own rules, and we simply learn to read them. Vertax's pride warred with his growing realization that he had catastrophically underestimated his opponent. The supposed primitive exploration vessel had revealed itself to be something far more dangerous, a ship that didn't just break the rules of conventional space combat, it rewrote them entirely. "What are your demands?" he finally asked, his voice heavy with the knowledge that his fleet, the pride of the Zarkak's empire, had been effectively neutralized by a single human ship. "Demands?" Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Admiral, we're an exploration vessel, remember? We don't make demands. We make discoveries. And right now, we're discovering whether the Zarkak's empire is capable of learning from its mistakes. Are you?" The quantum field continued to ripple around the horizon, a visible reminder that sometimes the greatest power lies not in what you show, but in what you choose to hide. And the Zarkak's empire was about to learn a painful lesson about judging books by their covers. Tables turned. The bridge of the eternal dominance had fallen silent, save for the nervous clicking of mandibles and the soft hum of struggling systems. Vertax watched as more of his ships became entangled in the horizon's expanding quantum field, their once mighty weapons reduced to little more than expensive decorations. "Fascinating readings we're getting from your fleet, Admiral," Captain Rodriguez commented, reviewing data on a holographic display that materialized beside her. "Your quantum fold drive technology is quite elegant, actually. Primitive in some ways, but elegant." Vertax's antenna bristled at the casual insult. "You dare mock the Empire's superior technology?" "Superior?" Rodriguez shook her head. "No, Admiral. Advanced, yes. Powerful, certainly. But superior. That implies you've reached the peak of possible achievement. We're showing you that there are entirely different mountains to climb." As if to emphasize her point, the horizon began its next demonstration. The quantum field surrounding it shifted, taking on new patterns that made Vertax's scientist officers cry out in alarm. The space around the human vessel seemed to fractal, creating nested layers of reality that their sensors couldn't begin to comprehend. "Sir," Korix called out, his voice trembling. They're creating localized temporal variance bubbles. Each layer of their quantum field exists in a slightly different time state." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Very observant, Commander Korix. Time and space are really just different expressions of the same thing. Once you learn to surf quantum probability waves, you find that temporal mechanics are just another set of rules that are more like guidelines." The tactical display showed something that should have been impossible. The horizon was now effectively operating in multiple time states simultaneously, making any coordinated attack against it not just spatially impossible, but temporally impossible as well. "You see, Admiral," Rodriguez continued, her tone reminiscent of a professor giving a lecture, "humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our perspective. When we first reached for the stars, we knew we were behind many species technologically. So we ask ourselves, what if being behind is actually an advantage?" "An advantage?" Vertax scoffed, though his bravado felt hollow even to himself. How could inferior technology ever be an advantage? "Because," Rodriguez smiled, "we had no preconceptions about what was impossible. Your empire spent millennia perfecting quantum fold drives, making them more powerful, more efficient. But you never stopped to ask if there was a completely different way to approach the problem. You were so busy climbing your mountain, you never looked around to see if there might be other peaks. The horizon's display of technological superiority continued, but Vertax noticed something odd. Despite having his fleet at their mercy, the humans hadn't fired a single conventional weapon. They were demonstrating their power, yes, but doing so with remarkable restraint. Why? He finally asked. Why reveal all this? Why not simply destroy us when we threatened you? Because destruction is easy, Admiral. Any species can learn to destroy. It takes true intelligence to know when not to. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. We're explorers, remember. Our mission is to learn, to understand, to discover. Right now, we're discovering whether the Zarkax Empire can learn from this encounter. Vertax felt his third heart skip a beat as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a demonstration of superior technology. It was a test, and how he responded would determine far more than just the fate of his fleet. The quantum field you're generating, he said slowly, his scientific curiosity finally overcoming his military pride. It's not just a weapon, is it? Now you're asking the right questions. Rodriguez beamed. No, Admiral, it's not a weapon. It's a tool for exploring quantum states of reality. We can observe and interact with multiple probability streams simultaneously. Your fleet isn't just seeing our ship. You're seeing every possible version of our ship across countless quantum realities. The science officer's console suddenly lit up with new data. Admiral, the human vessel. It's been collecting detailed scans of our technology this entire time. The quantum field isn't just defensive. It's an incredibly sophisticated research tool. Vertax felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine wonder. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them militarily. They'd turned the entire confrontation into a scientific expedition. While his fleet had been frantically trying to find a way to attack them, they'd been calmly studying everything about Zarkax technology, probably learning more in these few minutes than they could have through years of conventional observation. As this realization spread across the bridge, the nature of humanity's true power began to dawn on the Zarkax crew. It wasn't just their advanced technology or their mastery of quantum mechanics. It was their ability to turn any situation, even a potential battle, into an opportunity for learning and growth. And they had just taught the mighty Zarkax Empire a lesson it would never forget. Pride before the fall. Vertax stood motionless on his command deck, his compound eyes reflecting the shimmering quantum field that had effectively imprisoned his fleet. The mighty warships of the Zarkax Empire, each capable of reducing a small moon to asteroid fields, hung powerless in space, ensnared by forces they barely understood. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through his thoughts. Your crews seem distressed. Perhaps I could help explain what they're experiencing. It might make them more comfortable with the situation. The casual offer of scientific cooperation, coming from someone who had just neutralized his entire fleet, made Vertax's mandibles twitch with a complex mixture of humiliation and grudging respect. You speak as if this were a classroom, not a battlefield, he replied. Isn't it both? Rodriguez gestured, and a series of holographic displays materialized around her, showing complex quantum calculations. Every confrontation is an opportunity to learn. Right now, your crews are witnessing something remarkable. The interaction between classical spacetime and quantum probability fields at a macro scale. Suddenly, alarms blared across the eternal dominance. Vertax's tactical officer shouted, "Sir, 3 dreadnoughts have broken formation. They're attempting to execute a triple helix attack pattern." Vertax spun around. Belay that order. But it was too late. 3 of his most powerful warships, each nearly 2 kilometers long, had initiated the Zarkax Empire's most devastating attack formation. Their quantum fold drives synchronize, attempting to tear a hole in space-time itself around the horizon. Rodriguez watched with what appeared to be genuine interest. Ah, the infamous Zarkax triple helix maneuver. We've read about this in theoretical papers. Thank you for the practical demonstration. The three dreadnoughts spiraled through space, their combined energy output enough to destabilize a small star. But as they approached the horizon's quantum field, something extraordinary happened. Instead of disrupting the field, their attack was absorbed into it. The human chip's probability wave functions simply adapted, incorporating the massive energy input into its own systems. Fascinating, Rodriguez commented, studying the readings. Your attack just helped us map 17 new quantum probability states we hadn't documented before. Would you like to see the data? Vertax watched in stunned silence as his most powerful attack formation was not just neutralized, but converted into a scientific observation opportunity. The three dreadnoughts, their energy depleted, drifted powerless within the quantum field. How? He finally asked. How did you anticipate and counter our most secret tactical maneuver? We didn't, Rodriguez replied simply. Our quantum field doesn't need to anticipate attacks because it exists in all probable states simultaneously. Your ships tried to tear a hole in space-time, but you can't tear a hole in something that isn't fully anchored to any single reality. The implications were staggering. The Zarkax Empire had spent centuries developing weapons and tactics based on manipulating space-time, but the humans had simply stepped outside the traditional rules of space-time altogether. Sir, Korix reported, his voice heavy with resignation, the Dreadnought's quantum fold drives have completely burned out. They're operating on auxiliary power only. Rodriguez's expression showed genuine concern. Your engineers should be able to restart the drives in about 6 hours. The quantum backlash can be severe, but it's not permanent. We can provide technical assistance if you'd like. The offer of help, again, from the vessel that had just disabled his most powerful warships, struck Vertax like a physical blow. The humans weren't just technologically superior. They were showing a level of civilizational maturity that made the Zarkax Empire's aggressive expansion seem childish in comparison. Why? He asked again, but this time the question carried a different weight. Why show such restraint, such willingness to teach, when you could simply destroy? Rodriguez's answer was interrupted by a new alarm. The quantum field surrounding the horizon had detected something. A massive power surge building in the Eternal Dominance's main reactor. Interesting, Rodriguez noted, checking her readings. Someone on your ship just initiated a quantum core overload sequence that would create an explosion capable of taking out everything within several light minutes, including, of course, your own fleet. Vertax whirled to face his engineering station. Who dared? It doesn't matter, Rodriguez cut in. We've already contained the reaction. Your quantum core is now operating in a stabilized probability state, something that should be theoretically impossible, but well, here we are. The bridge crew stared in disbelief at their readings. The human vessel hadn't just prevented a catastrophic explosion. It had done something their best scientists had deemed impossible, forced a quantum reactor into a stable state during an overload sequence. And that, Admiral, Rodriguez said softly, is why we choose restraint. Because true power isn't about destruction. It's about having the capability for destruction and choosing something better. The silence that followed was profound. In the space of a few hours, everything the Zarkax Empire believed about their place in the galaxy, about their technological superiority, about the very nature of power itself, had been completely upended. And they hadn't lost a single ship or crew member in the process. Legacy of humility. 6 standard months after the encounter between the UE's Horizon and the Zarkax fleet, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Imperial Science Academy hosted an unprecedented event. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at the podium, her Earth Force uniform a stark contrast to the crystalline architecture and chitinous forms of her audience. The quantum probability mechanics we demonstrated that day, she addressed the gathered Zarkax scientists and military officials, weren't developed as weapons. They were born from our deep space exploration program, from our desire to study quantum phenomena across multiple star systems simultaneously. Vertax, now bearing the distinctive blue markings of the newly formed Joint Species Scientific Initiative, sat in the front row. The past months had transformed him from a military commander to one of the strongest advocates for human-Zarkax cooperation. Our perceived weakness, Rodriguez continued, was actually our greatest strength. When humanity reached the stars, we were centuries behind many species technologically. But this meant we had no preconceptions about what was impossible. We looked at quantum mechanics not as a problem to be solved, but as a dance partner to be embraced. The holographic display behind her showed the Horizon's quantum field technology, working in harmony with Zarkax's quantum fold drives, creating hybrid systems that neither species could have developed alone. Today, she announced, we're ready to unveil the first joint human-Zarkax vessel. The hologram shifted to reveal a ship unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The concordance combines our quantum probability field technology with your quantum fold drives. It can not only traverse vast distances, but study countless quantum states of space-time simultaneously. The assembled crowd buzzed with excited clicking and antenna movements. The implications were staggering. A ship that could not only explore space, but explore all possible versions of space it encountered. Vertax rose from his seat, his iridescent scales catching the light. When we first encountered humans, his resonant voice filled the hall. We thought them primitive, unworthy of our notice. Now they have taught us that true advancement comes not from power, but from perspective. As he spoke, news arrived from the frontier. The first joint human-Zarkax expedition had discovered a previously unknown form of quantum energy, only detectable through the combined use of both species' technology. The universe, it seemed, had waited for them to learn to work together before revealing new secrets. But perhaps the greatest lesson, Rodriguez concluded, wasn't about technology at all. It was about the nature of strength itself. True power isn't about domination or control. It's about having the wisdom to know when to fight, when to learn, and when to change. She gestured to the image of the concordance. This ship represents more than just a technological achievement. It represents a fundamental shift in how we view the universe and each other. Every species reaches a point where they must choose between the path of dominance and the path of understanding. The Zarkax Empire made that choice 6 months ago, and look how far we've come. In high orbit above the Academy, the Horizon maintained its station, its quantum field now harmonizing with Zarkax defense platforms. Once seen as a threat, it now stood as a symbol of something far more powerful than any weapon. The transformation of enemies into allies, of conflict into cooperation, and of fear into understanding. The Zarkax Empire's official historical records would later mark this period as the beginning of their second golden age, not an age of conquest and dominion, but one of discovery and collaboration. The entry would note, with a touch of irony, that their greatest victory came not from defeating an enemy, but from learning to see beyond the concept of enemies altogether. As the ceremony concluded, Vertax approached Rodriguez. "There's something I've been meaning to ask," he said. "That day, when we first encountered your ship, you could have easily destroyed our fleet. Why choose such a complicated approach?" Rodriguez smiled. "Because destruction only ends things, Admiral. We wanted to begin something." She gazed out at the assembled crowd, where humans and Zarkax mingled freely, sharing ideas and dreams of future discoveries. "Look around you. Which would you prefer? A destroyed fleet and a bitter enemy, or this?" Vertax's antenna moved in what humans had learned was a gesture of deep respect. "You knew this was possible, even then." "No," Rodriguez admitted, "but we hoped. And sometimes, hope is the most advanced technology of all." Above them, the quantum fields of human and Zarkax ships danced together in orbital harmony, their combined energies creating patterns that neither species fully understood yet. But now, instead of fearing the unknown, they faced it together, eager to learn what new wonders awaited their united effort to understand the universe's deepest mysteries. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what both species needed. End.